Watch the ride.
Hey everybody, so finally it's the review of the UM DSR 125. Okay, so I've had this for a couple of months, I've been using it as my little run around, I've done a few green laning videos and stuff on it, and I've finally got to the position where I can give you my opinion. And it's mixed, I have both good things and bad things to say, which is why I'm doing this bit, the first bit off the bike, so I can show you a few things and just talk about a few bits more clearly. Okay, so the first thing, the basic information, 125cc, 11.5 kilowatts of power, so it's the full limit for a CBT. It costs about £3,500. The frame is made in India and the engine is made in China by the partners of Aprilia or something like that. But it's a good engine, and that's where most of the extra money between this and, say, for instance, a Lexmoto is. They've put a much more powerful, developed engine into it. Now, this is being imported into the UK by Lexmoto, but it isn't a Lexmoto. As I've explained before, basically Chinese bikes, or this is actually, you know, where did this come from? China or India? It's kind of a bit of both. Chinese bikes come from different factories and are sold by one brand, so you can't really judge one by the other. And in the same way, this has got nothing to do with Lexmoto, so you can't judge across. This is a UM, it is what it is. It comes in two forms, the Enduro and the Supermoto. Unless you're going to primarily buy it for off-road use, then get the Supermoto, because it's just going to be better on the road to have road tyres. 21-inch front rim, knobblies, it's a bit of a compromise on the road, and some people may not have an issue with it, but at least on these tyres, for my experience level with knobblies on the road, which is this bike basically, I got better as I started to trust it a bit more, but I just don't like the lack of feel, and it does slide on the front if you really sort of go into a corner. So, you know, but then it's designed to be an off-road bike, and as an off-road bike, it's really good. I pushed it through a series of green lanes and hills and things that I've done on other bikes to see how it performed, and it performed brilliantly. I definitely was going faster and more confidently on this bike than I have been on, say, for instance, the road-tired Lexmoto that I did the same thing with. But there was a few problems here and there that I've had. Now, I must mention this is very, very early, so, you know, in the next 6 months, as things change, even maybe off the back of this video, things will be changed and things will improve. So the few things that I'm picking out here, remember, they're teething issues, and I'm being honest with my reviewers, I always am, and they like the feedback, and they actually genuinely do take the feedback and change things on the bike. So I'm just going to go with the cons, basically. First thing is these mirrors. I don't like the way that they're attached to the bars, because there is an adapter and a nut, so you kind of have to, as you're doing it up one way, it undoes it unless you have a spanner, and the toolkit under the seat doesn't include a spanner that fits. Was just annoying. Also, these don't really stay where you want them, they seem to move very easily. So yeah, not great mirrors. Mirrors maybe need a little looking at. The fuel gauge on this one was a bit sticky, or is a bit sticky. It doesn't always seem to come on when it should, and sometimes it even seems to come on when it doesn't need to. It's only a 6-litre tank on this bike, or 6.4 litres, so it's very small. The combination of that slightly sticky fuel gauge and the fact that it doesn't have a petcock on it, obviously because it is injected, meant that I did actually run out of fuel on it once. I should have known. So just make sure, if you have one of these bikes, you really do keep on top of topping it up. And as I say, I'm sure the fuel gauges probably work fine in the other bikes or in the future bikes. It's just, as I say, it's a little bit sticky. Now, if you remember when I was green laning, I was having issues with having to, on the middle of a hill, having to stop to get the bike into neutral so I could get it to start before I could put it back into first, which is obviously a bit of an issue when you're stuck on a hill. That isn't the way it should be. The other models they've got of this, other exact bikes, they are fine to start in gear, and it turns out it seems like this one has something wrong with its clutch switch, because if you wiggle it around, sometimes it'll let you start in first, sometimes it won't, sometimes it'll start with or without the clutch in. It's kind of a bit all over the place. So clutch switch, something with this one's not quite right. You know, I'm always very honest in my reviews, and I'm very happy that Lexmoto are happy for me to do that, because that's the only way I do my reviews. So if something comes up, I'm going to say about it. But I do also need to point out here, don't jump to this being some monster issue that, you know, ruins the bike and makes it not worth it, etc., etc. There's small things that may only be on this bike, but will probably be sorted in the future. But anyway, physically, bendy plastics, built strong, frame's very nice. I've been very happy with the build on this. Nice swing arm. So you can see where the money goes. You've got a nice swing arm, you've got a nice frame, good engine. All the parts on it are nice, good, sturdy, chunky, well made. No, the welding isn't even too bad. I mean, that's a little bit messy, that's a bit neater. As far as I'm concerned, the build on this is great. The tank is like this really hard plastic. Very, very durable. Levers are pretty standard, they don't look too cheap, they don't look too expensive. The throttle on this is a little bit weird because it uses one of these, well, I would call that a quick throttle. It's got nice fat bars on it. Not Renthals, but they're fat bars. I actually think it looks pretty nice. You know, it's a perfectly respectable bike. Very handy for off-road is they've got this grab handle. Look, your hands can actually go all the way through, you can touch your fingers. So when you're moving the bike around, you've got this really good thing to hold on to. Apart from if you really yank it, it doesn't unlock, but the seat will, like, move around. Never had it come off or anything. And I've really shunted on this, but if you're in a green lane, you know, you're really pulling it, you find yourself doing that all the time. So this grab handle, maybe it should be extended round or something, because you end up putting pressure on that lock mechanism, and it's not the strongest thing in the world. In fact, I should probably, let's unlock it and have a look what's going on. Yeah, you can, oh. Well, it would appear you can actually turn the lock mechanism, the entire thing. So if you shoved a screwdriver in it, you could unlock it without a key. But it's under the seat, and what's that really going to do for anyone? Let's say toolkit's here, airbox. It says airbox on it. See, nice plastics. Even this is good, strong. Battery up on the top, nice and easy to get to. The rear suspension is long travel. But I can't see any adjustment on it at all. Not even the ring at the top. There's not a ratchet ring or a thread or anything. So it looks like the suspension is as is. The front end is upside down forks and non-adjustable. One thing to notice about this bike is it's really tall. Now that can be a pro or that can be a con depending on your height. I am 6'4". I would happily say that this is as tall as my DRZ. It's great for me, as I say, at 6'4". You know, I can happily sit on it and my legs are almost straight touching the ground, which is a very comfortable thing. You know, on some smaller 125s, my knees are a bit more bent up when I'm stopped. However, you do need to be pretty tall to ride this thing. Right. So the one other big thing that I don't particularly like on this bike, but it isn't really the bike's fault, it's the emissions things and Euro 4 and everything kicking in that's causing problems. The power delivery on this bike is weird. You don't really have any low down power. I mean, there is power there, but you really have to spool the engine up to keep momentum and power and speed when you get through the gears. Oh, did I mention the size of the rear sprocket? I don't think I did. I really need to show you this. And this has a lot to do with it. Can you see this? A stunter would be proud of that thing. It is huge. Now what it comes down to is the fact that they're increasing the stroke length on these engines, and on other engines, because that means you get a cleaner burn of your fuel. But it also means you get less torque, as I understand it. So what this then means is you have to really spool the engine up to get any grunt out of it. See how it just goes? It's like it hits a power band. It's actually quite funny. In ways, I'd say it was like running a two-stroke, but I think two-strokes have more grunt lower down. Look, you'll notice. Now what this translates into is having to ride in a lower gear than you normally would, because right now I'd probably put it into the next gear. You know, it sounds okay, it's comfortably pottering along, but if I put the throttle on, nothing, no response. It builds, and then it finds its stride and it gets going. But you keep it in that sweet spot in the middle, and it's got all the power that you need. You feel like it's got a more powerful engine. But low down, compared to the Lexmoto Adrenalines of old, they were carbed, and I haven't tried the new EFIs, they felt like they had more grunt than this did, even though this has got more power. So that's why they've put the large sprocket on, because of the lack of torque, as I understand it. It means that it's pretty quick, but it doesn't go very quick top end. In fact, this on the display, it's one of the wonderful little gadgets that it has, is a maximum speed indicator, which is basically you can press and hold the button and it will reset, and then it will just keep track of what your highest speed was. Another thing you can do on here actually is it gives you time, miles and trip and battery volts. Refresh rate seems to be every couple of seconds or something. Very handy. It does in fact have 6 gears, but again, because of the way that the gearing works, if it wasn't for that 6th gear, you wouldn't be doing 70 mile an hour. It's only because of that 6th gear you're actually getting up to that 70. Well, the fastest I ever had on this bike, I tried my hardest, was 71. So that does sound like a fairly long list of complaints. However, most of them aren't that big an issue. When it actually comes down to it, as a bike to ride around that I've been using, I've found it to be well built. You get used to the way that the engine is and you adjust your riding style. I've taken it green laning, it's done brilliantly at that. Yeah, it's great for getting you around town. I'm not a fan of using knobblies on the road, but as I say, I think if you were to buy one of these and you're planning to primarily use it on the road, get the SM. If you're going to actually use it off-road, get the Enduro. And this is where I'll make my conclusion on the whole sort of, you know, do I think it's better than a Lexmoto, should I go for this or not? Which I know is what a lot of people are going to ask me, so that's why I'm sort of posing this question. And the answer is simple, really. If it's on the road, I don't know that I would pay the extra money, you know, over one of the Lexmotos, for instance, like the Adrenaline. However, if it was off-road, then this is much better and probably could well be worth that extra bit of money if you're actually going to do it quite a lot. Because it does have more power, the suspension's better for it, because it's longer travel, it seems, and it just seems like a more confidence-inducing bike off-road. So, kind of, that's a good compromise, because as I say, it's on the road, don't know, off the road, one of these. What a beautiful day. As I say, it's nice to ride around on. If you lived in the countryside, great. If you're a farmer, even better, I think. Especially the Enduro. It's a good little bike, but it does have problems. It's early days for it. I think in a year's time, with some learning and some R&D and some few bits and pieces to sort out, it will be a fantastic bike. We will mention the exhaust. You can't hear it. I mean, seriously, what can you hear? I hear engine and nothing else. I believe that Lextech is in fact looking at developing an exhaust for this bike, so never fear, it should sound better. I actually tried to get hold of any exhaust that would fit on the end just to see what it sounded like, and also to experience what it would be like without that exhaust on it, because I almost feel like it stifles it. It's that quiet, it's that much resistance in the thing that it feels like that could be bogging the engine a bit. I mean, maybe change the airbox, or did a mod of the airbox for more air, change the exhaust, possibly remapped it. I'm not sure how you do that. I reckon this thing would be much more responsive. But of course, for emissions rules, they can't build them like that. So it's been 100% reliable, no issues, no weird starting issues, always starts up, and I can leave it for a week in the garage and I haven't touched it, and then I'll go in there and just start it up on the button, no issues at all. Okay, so mechanical things to talk about. The throttle, it is a quick throttle, so you know, there's not a lot of turn in it. It's that. It's quarter, what's that, less than a quarter probably. It's very short, and because of that, it's very heavy. Now, gearbox, it works. You know, it's not a bad, it's nice, solid clicks between gears. I have had a few false neutrals with it. It may be a lot to do with the fact that the shifter lever is actually adjusted for in a big MX boot, and I've got skinny, sport bikey type boots, so I have to remember to really yank that the shifter up, and if I don't, that's when that can happen. It's between first and second, you know. The other issue to do with neutral is the neutral light is not very trustworthy. It's quite easy to confuse it. So with that, I just remember to solidly change gear, and I should have adjusted the shifter, and I didn't. The brakes, they're alright, they're nothing to write home about, but then again, I've never really tried pulling them on too hard on the road because I'm using knobbly tyres, and if you've ever broken hard on a bike on the front with knobbly tyres, you hear this. As the tyre starts to sort of go... But they work. Rear brake, very strong. So and it is surprising what grip you'll get off a knobbly at times. Helps that I'm over the rear wheel. It's a great little bike to ride around on, and I've found it very handy, useful and fun. But I have found a few problems with it, which I can't deny. So my conclusion is kind of open. It's got pros, it's got cons. I still enjoyed riding it. And you must also remember that these errors, these things that aren't quite right with this bike, may not cross over into other bikes. You know, one bike is not a telltale of the entire range. So you're going to have to go on your own findings there. I'd also say if you're actually interested in this bike, then watch the other videos that I've done on it, because you can see me using it in different places. You know, green laning it, and on the road, and on the dual carriageway, and you can make your own mind up. So there we go. Thank you very much for watching. Thanks to Next Moto for lending me the bike for the review. Sorry, I've picked out a few things, but I know you guys don't mind because you work on them. Don't forget, I have many more bike reviews. There is a playlist, and I'll link it at the end of the video. Thank you very much for watching. Catch you next time.